Hey everybody, this is Majority Leader Leo Biasiucci.
And I'm Sonny Borrelli, the Senate Majority Leader. And welcome to the first edition of a Sit Down with Majority Report. Our first topic is going to be the food tax.
So I think a lot of people maybe know or don't know that there is actually a food tax in the state of Arizona. Now the state itself doesn't have one, right, as a whole.
Correct. Right.
But of course the cities have got a little creative on trying to create some revenue. So they have actually, you have about 70 plus cities in the state of Arizona who have a food tax that they've implemented themselves.
65 to be exact.
65, correct. And it's funny because you look at the breakdown, you have cities like Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff that do not. You have smaller cities that do, but when you look at the big picture, you're talking places like Lake Havasu, Kingman, Bullhead. So you have rural cities that don't have it.
Correct.
You have big cities that don't have it. And you're going to hear these arguments from what you have heard from the Democrats, mainly saying you're going to hurt rural Arizona.
You're going to hurt rural Arizona. The fire department's going to, collapse, and that's a complete falsehood. Yeah.
Right. And so this bill that I've introduced and Senator Borrelli's introduced, the mirror, is really just removing that from cities and towns from being able to do it. So Arizona already doesn't do it, but we're saying, look, if you're a city or a town, this is a regressive tax, right?
Totally regressive. It's a tax on the poor, and actually, even the poorest of the poor who are on food stamps, state assistance. Obviously, when they're using their card, that's not being taxed. But the working poor who are not eligible for those kind of benefits, they're paying a tax that's regressive, especially with the cost of living going up right now. It's crazy. I mean, by eliminating this tax, we'll save these people on an average at least $500 a year in excess taxes they don't need to be paying. And by the way, that pays for a lot of eggs. And the price of eggs has gone through the roof.
That's true. And just in case you guys kind of missed that comment, so what Senator Borrelli mentioned was, so when you have food stamps, which SNAP benefits, those actually are not taxed. So that is a whole category that already do not get taxed. Even in these cities that have a food tax, they're not included with the SNAP. So the question then becomes, for the people that are not on food stamps, that are still struggling to put food on the table, and we're talking, I want to be clear, groceries. Right? This is not restaurants. This is not fast food.
This is food consumed at home.
At home, right. So so when you talk about people who are struggling to put food on the table, these are people that go to the grocery. They can't afford to go to the Olive Gardens or go out to eat at these restaurants. So they have to go home or go to the grocery store, buy the food. And it's funny because Katie Hobbs was actually asked about this because, her whole thing coming in is, look, I was a social worker. I'm here to help the people. And the other day she was on PBS and she made a comment because they actually confronted her about the food tax. And so actually let's roll that clip real quick and show you exactly what her comment was.
Same thing when it comes to a complete ban of the food tax, which isn't obviously food tax is parts of Arizona, not all of Arizona.
Right.
Republicans, again, they want to see a complete. Are those the kinds of issues that you can work on with those across the aisle?
Certainly. I mean, I'm not going to say no to anything.
Yeah, and it's just amazing that she's more focused on not taxing tampons and baby diapers instead of the whole big picture. I think what we're trying to do is actually encompassing what we really need to do for the taxpayer to save money, and that money's in their pocket. It belongs to them anyway. They don't need to be gouged by these cities and towns that are taxing them.
Absolutely. And so, it's funny when this bill came out, I started to get pushback from a lot of city mayors, supervisors, right? They're trying to reach out. The League of City and Towns they're losing their mind naturally. But when you break the numbers down, and this would have had to do with members and even with the people, because a lot of people don't understand how the process works. Where's the revenue coming from? So just to give you an example of what we're dealing with here. So with the grocery tax revenue, I'm going to take Payson, for example, who's a city that has a grocery tax. Right. In 2022, their numbers were $2.2 million from the grocery tax that they've taken in as a city. Now, 2 years ago, we passed Wayfair. Right. Yeah. And Wayfair, for the people that don't know, it's an online sales tax. So for a very long time, we were not capturing the online sales tax portion. So anything that was on Amazon, eBay, we were not collecting any of that. So we passed that bill a few years ago. So now cities are bringing that in. So when they came to me and said, look, you are going to destroy what's the first two things they say?
oh, you're going to starve us, we're going to have to close down, and the fire department,
Police and fire.
and fire are going to, yeah, right. There's,
Right. If you take this away, police and fire, which is funny because I had a representative who made this comment to me yesterday. He goes, when you're struggling to put food on the table yourself, do you go home and say, what are the two first things you're going to cut? Are you going to cut what? You're going to cut your electricity? You're going to cut your gas? No. You're going to cut maybe your Netflix subscription.
Right.
You're going to cut the things you don't need. So when the cities come and give the threat of, we're going to cut police and fire, really?
And,
so those are the first two things you're going to cut.
Right, and I'm a former council member, so the first things on the budget that are priority are police and fire.
Right.
So those things are not going to get cut. It's ridiculous.
It's a scare tactic.
You start cutting other things that within city government to make things more streamlined, like Havasu did. Like Havasu really shrunk the size of government and actually was one of the very few cities that actually survived the Great Recession with money in the bank.
And before I move on to the tax breakdown so people understand, the comment you just said there, and we talked about it before. So if Lake Havasu has no sales, no food tax, no renter's tax,
right?
Do they still have a police force?
Yes.
Fire department?
Yes.
How are they doing it?
They're doing great.
But that's my point.
Well, they're
right?
doing it from property taxes and the sales tax, TPT.
It wouldn't make
from
more
the tourists
sense
that are coming in.
Right.
Restaurant tax, restaurant tax. Oh yeah, they're doing good.
It wouldn't make more sense to them to say, if you were going to raise a tax, wouldn't it rather be the sales tax that you're charging for like TVs and furniture and
which they already do.
Which they do.
Especially,
and the cities,
especially if they get it from Wayfair.
Right. And the cities can raise that on their own. They don't have to go to the voters if they need. So the grocery tax is it's bad all the way around. Right. But let's break down the numbers real quick because they're coming to us.
It's gouging the poorest of the poor.
Exactly right. And they're saying you're going to cut our budgets. We're going to have to cut our budgets. But I'm going to break the numbers down so people understand. So
go ahead.
Payson, Arizona, $2.2 million from grocery tax in 22. Now, Wayfair brought in about $900,000. Okay, so that's a good little backfill they never received before. They've never had that money before until we changed the law. And then what we did as a state of Arizona is we have now held the cities harmless from the income tax. And so their urban share revenue has now gone from 15% to 18%.
Yeah.
So we are giving them a 3% boost to every city in town in the state of Arizona.
That's
so
absolutely right.
That goes into play next year. Now let me give you the numbers real quick. So for Payson, current urban share revenue, the cut they get, that 15%, is $1.9 million, right? With the increase that we're bringing for the 3% increase, that number jumps to $4 million next year. $3 million in excess.
Gosh, what are they going to do with all that money?
Plus, don't forget the Wayfair was another $1 million almost, right?
Yeah.
So when they come and they say, you hear the arguments of, we're going to have to cut our budgets, it's all nonsense.
Correct.
Right? This tax should not be happening in the state of Arizona. It's not needed.
It's unfair. Not all the cities do it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I agree.
It should go away.
I agree. So
pure and simple.
We're going to see what happens here. It passed out of the House. Party line votes. All the Dems voted no. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, I think we've seen this party shift from party of helping the poor to.
Well, they always say that, but when it
that.
comes down to it, they don't.
And their comment was in I don't know if we have the clip. Maybe we'll show it later. But in committee, there was a comment from a Democrat legislator. I think it was Representative Kano, who said, what does it matter? $1.50, $2 tax on groceries. That's pennies. If you're doing that 2 or 3 times a week, at the end of the year, you're looking over what, $150 in that range. A lot of people can use that for other things, right? To put gas in their car, to pay for the electricity, to their gas. I mean, that comment should be disturbing to anybody who's struggling right now. When somebody says a couple $100 a year is nothing, they can deal with it. It
seems pretty arrogant to me.
A little bit. And so just so you guys know, we'll keep you updated on the status of where this bill is going. The Senate, you have their mirror that's going to be heard here pretty soon.
Mirror meaning we have 2 identical bills. We're going to be moving them at the same time. It kind of fast tracks the process so that way we can get it done and get that law on the books or a repeal on the books, however you want to look at it. I want to try to put some money back in your pocket.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. Governor Hobbs, she'll have an option to veto this or sign it into law. You're going to find out really soon if this is party politics or if she's going to do what's right for the state of Arizona and for the people of Arizona that are struggling the most. We'll have that answer here in a few weeks. So we appreciate you guys spending your time with us.
Yep.
We'll hopefully be doing this every couple weeks.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in to the Majority Report. Sit down with the Majority Report. Thank you.
Thank you.